scary, but I'm here because I'm looking for a husband.
It seems like every season that Love is Blind continues to air is just more and more abusive than the last. But who would have thought that fan favorite Brendan Lemieux would turn out to be the most abusive villain of them all? In order to really understand the abuse that goes on in season 3 of Love is Blind, we have to talk about the good guy trope and how that intertwines more often than you would think with varying forms of domestic violence. We need to talk about a reoccurring theme that keeps coming up. It's those who fall into the nice guy edit while being very abusive to their partners, either blatantly or subtly. The UN defines domestic violence as domestic abuse or intimate partner violence that is a pattern of behavior in any relationship that is used to gain or maintain power or control over an intimate partner. Abuse is physical, sexual, emotional, economic, or psychological actions or threats of actions that influence another person. This includes any behaviors that frighten, intimidate, terrorize, manipulate, hurt, humiliate, blame, injure, or wound somebody. But this show allows these abusive men to hide their abuse underneath the nice guy trope. The nice guy trope is someone who acts kind, friendly, well-balanced, they're morally superior in some way, they're morally good, and socially decent in most cases. They will often try to be the voice of reason and insert their voices where it's not really wanted or necessary. They seem like they would make a very good friend, they come across as romantic and chivalrous, or they pretend to be. They're very likable, they're usually funny in some way, and they will make it seem as if they always stand up for what's right while simultaneously abusing their partner. Women are often attracted to them because of their kindness or because of their kind-hearted nature, at least when they first meet. The nice guy is often portrayed on this show as unintentionally insensitive. So they're offensive, but they don't really realize it, so you can't really fault them for it, which is not true because they're grown men and they should take accountability for their actions. Too many men in season 2 and season 3 were thrown into the nice guy edit and the nice guy trope, and they're using this to mask their varying forms of abuse, controlling, and derogatory behavior. According to PsychCentral.com, abusers are often nice because they want to convince others and maybe even themselves that they are good people. They want to be able to gaslight or manipulate their victims into thinking that they are not in fact being mistreated, when the victims know that they are. Their niceness is a fish lure. Once they've got you hooked, the niceness fades and returns when they feel you slipping off of the hook. Once you're hooked again, the niceness goes away. This is called the recovery phase of the cycle of abuse. Using the nice guy edit or the nice guy trope, they're able to persuade themselves, but also others, that the other person in the relationship is the problem, that they are not the problem. The niceties and the periods of kindness are simply just them being controlling and abusive. The periods of niceness, it gives the illusion of change, which hooks that person further. But all it actually does is allows the abuser to maintain the upper hand in the relationship, setting the stage for further control and abuse. It keeps everyone, including the person who is being abused, in a state of distraction. Look over there! In the show, it often comes across as like, yeah, I might have done that thing that was problematic and was wrong, but look at how badly they reacted to what I did, when I was just kind and tried my hardest to make things work. Niceness can be in the form of a compliment, an apology, a moment of insight, or other non-mean gesture, which basically to me just means breadcrumbing, like giving you the absolute bare minimum, and you're like, oh my god, thank you, because you're so used to them treating you terribly. It's basically just something that makes you feel good, but has no definitive moment of change, no real substance, change of actions or behaviors. And this is something we actually see a lot with Cole in season 3. In season 2 and season 3, we see the women stay in this cycle of abuse because they are in love. They are overly willing to forgive and move on because they went on the show with the intention of finding love and getting married. They wanted to leave the show married. They may even blame themselves for their partner's abusive actions or behaviors. They feel compelled to stick around and help their partners change or wait for them to change. They see the abuse as a collective relationship problem that both of them need to work on in order for it to be resolved. There are highs in the relationship, and so the women stick around for those highs, or they appreciate those moments and stick around through them, just like Zainab did with Cole. But the highs only come along after the women stand up for themselves, they distance themselves, or question the relationship itself because they don't want to be subject to that form of abuse or manipulation anymore, and so that fish hook just comes right back out. Nancy and Bartise. I knew that he did not like Nancy but he treated her like he did, just basically the entire season. This man is so shallow, it's disgusting. He also kept talking about how attractive he was and blah, 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 and I just want to know...
Wow. Who had been saying that? Who said that? Who said that? Who said that?
He really had nothing to offer Nancy. Like, Nancy brought the table, she brought the cutlery, she brought the fancy china, she brought everything. She brought the food, she brought the drinks. She brings everything to the table, so he had nothing to offer her in terms of that. She didn't want anything from him other than to be a good partner, and he couldn't even do that.
Disgusting!
I do not think that Bartise valued her as a person, let alone as a partner, after he saw Nancy and Raven standing side by side. I wish they would have just let Nancy's brothers have 5 minutes with him, off camera, at that wedding. They would have ate him up, and he would have deserved every second of it. Alexa and Brennon, I thought that they were really cute as a couple, like really adorable. But I also thought that they were boring. I did think that it was weird that he was just so willing to change everything about himself, about his like religion, and was so willing to convert to like Judaism and all of those things so quickly. But they seemed happy and it didn't seem toxic, so I was happy for them for real. SK and Raven. Okay, so I had watched the season late, but I had seen everybody talking about SK and how they want SK, and if Raven doesn't want SK, they'll take SK. And after I watched it, I did not understand the hype about him. I really didn't. And now to this day, I still don't understand the hype. Raven to me seemed really sweet, but just very introverted, and as if she liked to keep things private and keep things to herself, just be to herself and her close friends. So I did not understand why she chose to go onto a reality TV show. Like, that just didn't make sense to me. If you're introverted, this is probably not the thing for you, babes. But they did seem to have a blooming middle school like love. I do think that Raven genuinely had feelings for SK, but I questioned whether SK really had feelings for Raven or deep feelings for Raven, if I'm being 100% honest. It didn't seem like SK was as attracted to Raven as she was to him. It did seem sweet that SK was going at Raven's pace and wasn't pushing her past anything that she was comfortable with. But I don't like how they talked about money, how the show kind of framed it as she was being a gold digger for saying that her husband should take care of her. If that's something that she wants in a marriage, then that's what she wants in a marriage. And who are you to tell her otherwise?
That's on period!
I just thought that they were very much trying to give Raven the villain edit when SK would turn out to be the biggest villain of them all. But we'll talk about that in a second. Cole and Zanab. I live for Zanab, okay? I live for her. I know a lot of people are on Team Cole, but I am not. He tried to make it seem like she was the problem. Meanwhile, he was the problem, and he had been the problem from day one. He really liked her, but he only liked her after she had talked about the deaths of both of her parents. He saw her as damaged or having insecurities or holes in her life that he could potentially fill, so that she needed him to heal her in some way, and so he jumped on that, which is an abusive tactic. I do not think that they were compatible, like, at all. I think that they could have enjoyed one another, but I didn't really see how their relationship would have worked long term. I did not get Zanab's attraction to Cole mentally or physically, but that's just me. I didn't get it. It didn't make sense to me. Matt and Colleen. I think that it's a tie between Matt and Colleen and Zanab and Cole for the most toxic couple of season 3. But I do think that Matt and Colleen have that, I think they out-edge each other in other ways, but it's a tie for me because Colleen didn't really want Matt. She wanted Brennon, who is a villain as well. She wanted Cole, who clearly a villain, and then she settled for Matt. She didn't really want Matt, right? She only wanted him after her other 2 options were taken away. But she was not upfront with him about that. She made it seem like that's who she wanted the whole time, and that was a lie. So I thought that was toxic. But I will say that she allowed herself to learn from those 2 mistakes with Brennon and Cole and dive like face first into things with Matt and just being honest with how she was feeling and having those deep conversations that she was kind of hesitant to have with others. So I did see them working out, but I do think that Matt portrayed a lot of toxic red flags when it came to the conversation that Cole and Colleen had, where Cole basically told her, like, you're a 10, I want you, and that's a problem. And she entertained him a little bit, which whatever. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but Matt had a big issue with it as he had been cheated on in his previous relationship. He's just another person who should have gone to therapy instead of going on a show to get married. And so all of his insecurities were triggered, and all of those things were constantly being brought up throughout the rest of the season. Like, he just could not let it go. And he was starting to storm off and leave and giving her the silent treatment and all of those things. And that's all very abusive, manipulative behavior. So when it comes down to the villains of the season, all the men are top tier villains in season 3. Every single one of them, a top tier villain. Let's start with Bartise. Mans is shallow as hell. So shallow, and he gives me shake energy, to where looks are like of the most importance and nothing else matters, even though Nancy brought everything. Okay, Nancy is beautiful. Nancy has a great business. She has great family, great supports. She literally doesn't need anything from anybody. And I also think that that was part of the problem with Bartise, is that he realized that there was nothing he could prey on. There was nothing that he could kind of latch onto and make her feel like, oh, well, I really need to have you around type energy. Because after he said no at the wedding, he wanted to continue to pursue a relationship with her, and she was not having it. She did not want it. And he's like, oh, I was disappointed in that. But then a couple weeks later, he was hooking up with a tall, skinny blonde, which is what he repeatedly told her that he went after. I just think that he was really shallow. And he kept talking about the deep connection that he and Raven had to Nancy. Meanwhile, they did not have a deep connection. They talked about working out, and he was physically attracted to Raven, but they didn't talk about anything else. Like, when he kept talking about, oh, I'm getting deep, he was talking about stories and things that happened to other people, nothing that actually happened to him. So he was not getting deep. He's annoying. I just find him annoying. I do think that a lot of the conversations that he was having regarding Nancy's looks and comparing her to Raven, had she not been so secure in who she was as a person, I think it could have made her feel unworthy, or like she wasn't good enough. Meanwhile, she was more than enough. And I do think that that's what Bartise was trying to do. I think that he was trying to make her feel inadequate, so then she would work harder to keep him, or work harder to have the relationship with him. So I didn't think that that was fair. And Bartise is a villain. Okay, cool. Personally, I did not see the appeal of him from jump. Like, I did not get why people liked him, to be 100% honest with you. He reminded me of all the hockey boys that I grew up with in Winnipeg, and that's not a good vibe for a grown man to have. Let's just say that. Especially when you're trying to get married. Right from jump, he was far more interested in Zeinab than Colleen, but not for the right reasons. He only liked Zeinab because she had talked about her trauma. He saw, in the pods at least, women trauma dumping as having and forming a genuine connection with them, and that's just not fair. I think it's similar to the thing that Bartise was trying to do, like find the insecurity so then I can fill that hole, be a part of your self-worth, and then you need me forever. When he was talking to Colleen in the pods, she didn't do that. And he then said that she wasn't a deep person and that she was not looking for a deep, serious relationship, which he was a goofball and asking idiotic questions like, what's on my socks? Now, she did in fact say that she was not a deep or a serious person, said that she prefers to keep things more surface level, but I do not blame her for refusing to share her deepest, darkest traumas with him right off the bat like that, just because he asked, but he also wasn't opening up in a similar way. I think that it would be different if he was looking to build a genuine connection and there was mutual sharing of things that happened, but Cole never did that. Like, ever. He himself was very shallow and very surface level in the conversations, but had the caucasity to call Colleen shallow. Like, okay, sir. I do not think that he ever allowed Zeinab to fully be herself and just be comfortable in herself. He would get awkward, or he would tense up. He would give her the silent treatment, and those are all like abusive tactics to make someone conform their behavior to doing what you want to do to make you more comfortable. I'm not saying Zeinab was perfect. Let's get this clear. She was always taking shots at him, but the shots were always taken to his face. He was constantly taking shots behind her back and then to her face, but trying to guise it under humor. Like, when he did take shots to her face, it wasn't about simple things like wine glasses or the lack of chicken seasoning. It was about her appearance and what she ate. Like, it was not light and fluffy things like Zeinab, so to me, it's not on the same level, the shots they were taking. At the wedding ceremony, I must say it felt so good to see Zeinab reclaim her power by calling him out for what he did and how he made her feel. She completely broke that nice guy facade that he was trying to carry and the abusive cycle that she and Cole were in from the very beginning, where he got her hooked the minute she talked about her dead parents. SK. This man is a super villain because he portrayed himself also as a super nice guy who was super patient and just wanted to give her the world and blah, blah, blah. Said no on the wedding day And then after the season finished airing, it came out that he was cheating on Raven with several different women.
Boo, you whore.
They did not get married, but they were together immediately after the show. I think within 2 weeks after they stopped filming, initially before they filmed the reunion, they were together. So they were together for about a year before the reunion aired. He was pretending to be loyal to Raven and committed to Raven, but he was cheating on her the whole time. He was on Bumble, he was on Hinge, he was flying girls out, he was taking them on trips, he was texting them, he was following them on Instagram, he was just doing shady stuff. He was cheating on her the whole time, manipulating her. This man is a supervillain. Matt. Matt is another person who needed therapy instead of working out his issues in a marriage on a reality TV show. That just seems like the worst thing for somebody who has such deeply rooted trauma in marriage. That just does not seem like the place for you, sir. If you have trust issues, you need to work on that. You need to work on the insecurities which come from that, because not trusting someone or finding it difficult to trust somebody after you have been cheated on, that's super valid. But it's not valid to leap into a relationship that you are not ready for, a marriage you are not ready for, and then attack your current partner based off of your previous partner's actions. That's not fair. And I also found that he was very abusive. He didn't know how to communicate with Colleen, and Colleen very much seemed like she just wanted to make him happy. So if it came to apologizing a million times or retelling him what happened to the situation a million times, then she would just do that. And then the minute she started to kind of pull away because she's like, I don't know if I can do this for the rest of my life, then all of a sudden he's not doing any of those toxic things anymore. He's on his best behavior to try and get her hooked in again. I do think that Matt was extremely verbally and emotionally abusive, and Colleen was just kind of susceptible and open to it because she herself has said that she was never that deep in a relationship with somebody. She'd never formed a connection like that. I think that she just wanted to do what was necessary to keep him around. Matt is a villain for that. But now for Brennon, the unexpected villain of the season. Now, Brennon also fit into that nice guy trope that we were talking about, but it seemed like he was genuinely just a nice guy, but we would soon find out that he would be the biggest villain out of all the Love is Blind seasons put together. Like I said, when I first saw the show air, I really liked him. I thought that he was a really good person. I thought that they made a really good couple, but now I am honestly quite worried about Alexa. On January 27th, 2021, which was about 5 or 6 months before they began filming Love is Blind, Brennon was charged with aggravated assault causing serious bodily injury. The filed police report says that he attacked his ex-girlfriend, threw her against a wall, she hit her head, which caused her to have a concussion and go unconscious for a couple minutes. When she regained her consciousness, Brennon was on top of her, striking her, pushing her, scratching her with both hands, which caused her to have bruises and scratches, most of which were defensive wounds, her trying to block him from hitting her face or her head any further. The charges were actually dropped, but why they were dropped is unknown. I want to be super clear. DV charges can be dropped for a variety of reasons. The victim being intimidated or scared, she doesn't want to testify, she doesn't want to press charges. It becomes a he said, she said situation, so authorities don't want to pursue charges further. It can be literally a bunch of things. It does not mean that he is innocent, that he did not cause these injuries. Like, obviously something happened to her. She wouldn't have done this to herself and then blamed him. And if she did, then she would have come out once the season aired and exposed him and made a big deal about it, but she hasn't. It was people digging online that found all of these things and brought them to the surface. Brennon and this woman, Sarah, her last name is not known, which is good. They were only together for about 3 months when this had happened. He was 30 and she was 22. Brennon is 6'4" and Sarah is about 5'3". So he's a big guy. He had at least 70 or 80 pounds on her in this instance, and he is significantly taller and bigger than her. There's a clear power imbalance just based on the ages alone. Like, Matt is 8 years older than her. She is 22, so her prefrontal lobe isn't fully developed yet. Like, her decision making is not all there. She's quite young. And if Brennon is supposedly looking for marriage, then why is he not dating people his age? But also the size difference. He is much larger than her. He could have caused her injuries to be significantly worse due to that alone. I hope that this girl is out there thriving, doing well, and just living her best life far away from this man, but I also cannot imagine how stressful and painful it would be to see your abusive ex on TV being praised for being such a good man, being such a kind person, for being the best husband. You know what he's really like. This to me was somewhat shocking, but also not super shocking, because any man who leans into that nice guy trope or the my whole personality is that I'm a wife guy stereotype, they're usually not great people. He came off as super calm and collected and loving, and he had the caucasity to get mad at Cole at the reunion for comments that he had made. Meanwhile, he had this skeleton in his closet of being a domestic abuser. So if anyone were to win the super villain of the whole Love is Blind cast out of the seasons that have aired thus far, it's Brennon. Love is Blind producers, let's have a chat, okay? Because what background checks are you guys doing on these people? What psych evaluations are you doing on these people? Are you doing any at all?
So as soon as we find out who you are, trust you will be dealt with. Period.
Because this cannot keep happening. Season after season, the abuse just gets worse. The first season, I would say there was maybe a couple abusers who were emotionally manipulative, things like that. Second season, there seemed to be a lot more. But third season, for every man and all of the couples to have a history of abuse or to show how abusive, manipulative, and controlling they are on the season that you aired, out of the edited things that you aired, so we don't even know the stuff that was unaired, that is a problem. Y'all are allowing abuse to become normalized and encouraged on the show and then giving these men huge platforms off of it.
What's not clicking?
Like, it is so extremely unethical and irresponsible to, season after season, be putting these women on this show to be publicly abused and humiliated by their partners. If you are going to be putting people on these shows, then you as producers and creators, you have an obligation, in my opinion, to be doing your proper research on these people before putting them into situations like marriage, where they literally make a vow for the rest of their lives. And so they feel trapped, more trapped than they would have been if it was just like a normal dating show. I think all TV shows that are dating shows should do complete background checks and psych evaluations and know the full history of the people who are coming onto the show, because there's absolutely no way that any of the men who were on this season genuinely should have been on this season, like at all, if they had done proper checks, except for SK. I could see how maybe SK flew under the radar with his cheating and his lying and manipulation and things like that. But all the other men, there's absolutely no reason that they should have been on the show, especially Brennon, when there is a paper trail of his abuse. Like, that doesn't even make sense. And the paper trail at this specific incident, who knows if there's more, they might be coming out. And if they do come out, I'll report on that. But this specific incident happened only a couple months before y'all started filming. And you're telling me you decided to keep filming with him? You decided to let him on your show and get married to a woman after just having charges of domestic abuse, causing serious bodily injury filed against him?
Electric chair.
Y'all need to do better. At this point, love is not blind. Love is abusive. If you like this reality TV breakdown, then make sure to check out my playlist full of other reality TV breakdowns. I do this on a regular basis, so make sure to subscribe and become a channel member if you want early access to my content or other exclusive perks. I'd love to have you there.